Your old or broken phone can let you down when you need it most.
Perfect.
But at Verizon, trade in any old phone from our top brands and get the most for it, up to $2,000 in value, for an amazing new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence and a new line on My Plan, and iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. That's like a 3-for-1. And you can get it on any plan. At Verizon, trade in your old phone for a brand new iPhone 16 Pro, iPad, and Apple Watch. The other guys won't give you that. Visit Verizon.com today. Additional terms apply. Service plan required for Apple Watch and iPad. Up to $2,000 value based on iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch.
Attention Ditto Heads. Attention Bo Scouts.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
It's time for the Soul of Excellence.
He is a radio host here in New York.
The Rush Hour is on the air.
Rush.
Now here's James Golden.
And welcome, my friends, to the Tuesday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. I'm so glad it's Tuesday. I didn't know when I said that what day it really was. I'm taking a flyer because these days all blend into each other. It's so much going on. It is. Anyway, if you'd like to be part of the program today, 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. 800-848-9222. And looking forward to catching up with you. Quite a lot, as usual, to discuss, my friends. It is coming to a head. That being the fight between some of these district judges who think they should be the president of the United States. They have the authority to make presidential decisions, and the actual president. In a rare move, Chief Justice John Roberts has opened up and suggested that calls to impeach some of these judges are not the way to go. We'll see how all of that plays out, because there is a congressman who has, I believe, is either filing or has filed impeachment charges against this district judge in D.C. who is involved in this case regarding the terrorists that were sent to El Salvador. That would be Judge James E. Boasberg, District of Columbia, U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. And Donald Trump had said this radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the number one reason for this historic victory. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. Make America great again. U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Roberts indicated in a statement that seeking impeachment is not an appropriate response when disagreeing with a judicial decision. For more than 2 centuries, Chief Justice Roberts said, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose, he said. So every single day of this presidency, I suppose, should be dealing with these judges who might, according to some observers, including Stephen Miller, be overstepping their boundaries. The fact that they may be acting in a partisan way should be excused. Maybe, I said. I am not weighing in on whether they are or not. If you read through some of the newspapers of the day, the judge has doubled down, by the way. Princess Diana sent me, I read this, and I didn't have time to print it out, so let me go back to it very quickly. Yeah, the judge has issued orders. This Bozog has doubled down on demands for details about the deportation flights that left on Saturday that he tried to bring back. So this area of the judges, this is the big story today. There are other stories that are still in the news. Chuck U. Schumer, for instance, is all over TV trying to plead his case, why he should remain. I guess the pressure is deep enough that they sent him out on a Save Chuck U the Save Chuck U tour. You save your Chuck U before your Chuck U is gone. Because apparently Chuck U is in big danger of actually being gone. And he ain't liking that a bit. By the way, he was over in one of I think it was on The View, with just the most disparaging view. If you're one of these people that resist and doesn't like how your tax dollars are being spent, the Democrats have a message for you, and it's pretty much Chuck You. So we have a lot to do. Now, Stephen Miller was on with Cassie Hunt on CNN. It was 9 minutes and some odd seconds of an interview. And I, of course, I asked, I take advice. I asked my princess. Well, I said, Princess Diana, this cut goes on 9 minutes and 36 seconds. Oh, I'd like to play the whole thing, but, only have an hour on the air in the afternoon. You think playing the whole thing might be a bit much? And she said, well, she answered me, there's some great parts in this thing. And so what we've done, what I've decided to do, is to break it up into 3 different sound bites. You see what I'm talking about there, Carlos? Those 3 sound bites with Stephen Miller and Cassie Hunt. Well, there's one before it where Steve Miller actually, which is the question that she asks, a little ebonic there, what she's asking him about, which he was outside of the White House, I believe. Yes, he was. He was outside of the White House. And this is where he says that the judge's orders are unlawful. That one. Play that first, and then let's delve into these 3. Why don't we? So, Stephen Miller, again, discussing why the judge's order was unlawful. Go ahead.
Well, they are actually foreign terrorists and alien enemies of the United States. And everything that we do is for operational security reasons. We're dealing with one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations on planet Earth. A few points on this. One is that the president reserves the right to exercise all necessary authorities to secure the homeland and to repel any invasion or incursion. The judge, which is truly beyond comprehension and belief, issued his unlawful order without even receiving any information on this terrorist organization, on the diplomacy that had been conducted internationally by the Secretary of State, any briefing from the intelligence community, any information at all, let alone the fact that he's trying to issue the movement of aircraft that are operating outside the United States, the legal equivalent of directing troop movements overseas or moving around an aircraft carrier on matters of essential national security. It is certainly, I would think without question, the most unlawful order that any district court judge has issued in our lifetimes without even a close second. And it put the lives in danger of the Homeland Security personnel on those aircraft, and it jeopardized enormous, massive diplomatic and security issues across the entirety of the Western Hemisphere. At a fundamental level, a district court judge has no authority to direct the national security operations of the executive branch. The president is operating at the apex of his authority when you are dealing with questions of invasion and questions of alien enemy infiltration, as well as the expulsion of terrorist illegal aliens from the country. That's the president operating at the absolute apex of his constitutional authority. And the founding generation that wrote this law very clearly, these are the same people who wrote the Constitution, very clearly wanted to ensure the president had the broadest range of authority to remove from the nation non-citizens who are part of an alien enemy force. And that's the authority the president has. And in the coming days, you will see the full suite of presidential authorities used to extirpate this gang, this terrorist organization, from our soil.
So that was it. That was the remark. The president has this authority, granted, by the way, by the founding fathers. It's clear, and pretty much this was an unlawful order by the judge. Ms. Hunt over at CNN doesn't quite grasp the concept. So she had Stephen Miller on with her. When we get back from a break, don't want to start it now because we just have to do it. We'll get as much in as we can from Stephen Miller and Cassie Hunt. This is the top story of the day, folks, because it's not just the top story of the day. This is huge. At some point, there has to be a clear demarcation of what the role of these district judges are when it comes to thinking that they should be the ones dictating national political power and policy. It is time for this to come to a head, and it is coming to a head now. On this day, 2017, one of the pioneers of rock and roll, Chuck Berry, passed away aged 90 years old. This is one of his first big hits, 1958. But I mean, he had been kicking it already for 3 years. Maybelline came out in 55, Roll Over Beethoven, 56, Rock and Roll Music, 57, and this one, 1958. Remembering Chuck? Yes, 800-848-9222. Telephones if you want to reach us. Don't go away.
Rush.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Snerdley.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
1959. Irene Cara is born. Singer, songwriter, dancer, amazing dancer, and actress Irene Cara. The movie, of course, that brought her to fame was Flashdance. Fame. Passed away in 2022, actually, 63 years old, young lady. What a soundtrack on that. One of my favorites always, Michael Sembello's song, Maniac, which is one of my favorites. Okay, we got to do this. Carlos said, look, you don't have that much time. Stop talking and get to it. Okay, Stephen, yeah, I know, that's what you meant. Stephen Miller. So you heard him, the remarks outside the White House. Then he goes on CNN, and there with Cassie Hunt, I have rarely heard an interview that goes this long. But let me tell you something. These leftist stations, you'll hear it for yourself. Just go ahead. The first of the trio, we cut it into 3 bites because it is long. So this is Stephen Miller with Cassie Hunt, CNN.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end quote, and said that it was an assault on democracy itself. Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the President the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up. At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment? And I fail to see how there's any other way but to start with where we're starting here before you get to eventually the Supreme Court.
Well, so first of all, there's a term in law, justiciable. This is not justiciable. In other words, this is not subject to judicial remedy. When the president is exercising his Article II powers to defend the country against an invasion or to repel a foreign terrorist that is unlawfully in the country, he's exercising his core Article II powers as commander-in-chief.
Is Venezuela invading the U.S.?
This is a very important point. This is a Title 50 authority. It's a commander-in-chief authority. So just to ask you a simple question, you talk about how the system works. Does a district court judge have the right to direct or enjoin troop movements overseas? Yes or no?
Well, Stephen, my question. If you could answer my question first.
In other words,
is Venezuela invading our country in a way that would apply this way?
So I'll answer yours and you'll answer mine. Under the terms of the statute, Tren de Aragua is an alien enemy force that has come here as detailed at length in the proclamation at the direction of the Venezuelan government. The statute says that a president has the ability to repel an invasion or predatory incursion that is directed by a foreign
state
government.
or a government, right? Are they a state or a government?
This would be, yes, it is documented. The TDA was sent by the Venezuelan government in the proclamation. And here's an even more important point. Under the Constitution, who makes that determination? A district court judge elected by no one, or the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy? The president and the president alone makes a decision of what triggers that determination.
So do you then think we are actually at war with Venezuela, the nation state of Venezuela?
You're not hearing me and you're not understanding me. Read the statute.
Yeah, read it, miss. But, I mean, can you believe it? He's trying to explain to her the legal foundation, and she really doesn't want to hear it. And this happens over and over again, whether it's Abby Phillips, whether it's her. Anyway, folks, we're going to listen to the rest of this interview, but we got to get this Chuck Schumer one in here, too, because it is insulting beyond belief. Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour, the Tuesday edition. Your calls, too, at 800-848-9222.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Lemon would like to have a word with you.
People love AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for.
Don, if you believe that the Democrat Party should be putting more Jasmine out there, I agree. If you believe that they should be putting AOC out there every blasted day, yes, I agree. And Swalwell, don't forget, there's Rashida. Tlaib can put her out there too. Please put Ilhan Omar out there the way she says, ta-dum. Put Ilhan Omar out there to talk about Trump. And also, don't forget that little kid out of Florida, that Martin guy that's always sounding a little bit wackadoodle. Get him out there, too. Martin Frost, I think his name is. No relation to Jack that I know of. 1941, Wilson Pickett, wicked Wilson Pickett, was born. So many hits in the midnight hour. Land of 1,000 dances. We played that the other day. Mustang Sally. We played that on Saturday, Carlos, while you were busy elsewhere. And I won't say where because we're not doing that again. I will never, ever break your alibi like I did yesterday. I am so sorry. You know, I know, brother, you know, you have to tell me. Like, you know, play it like yourself, bro. I mean, that you should never do that to a player. Anyway, the guy, Elias, was sitting in Saturday for you, and he wanted to hear Land of 1,000 Dances, so he did it. He played it. Funky Broadway, too. Wicked Wilson Pickett. That was his nickname. Nothing wicked about it. He passed away in 2006. James Golden Snerdley with you here. Let's see. We were with Stephen Miller, and so you heard the beginning of the argument with Cassie Hunt. She doesn't want to hear that this judge has absolutely no jurisdiction because the Constitution defines this as a power intrinsic, a plenary power of the presidency, and therefore this judge should not have interfered. So the conversation continues. Cassie Hunt from CNN with Stephen Miller.
Alien Enemies Act, 1798. It says if a predatory incursion is perpetrated by a foreign government. So it lists three qualifying actions. It could be an act of war.
It does say in the very beginning there has to be a declared war against a nation or a state. That's what it says.
No, wrong. Look up the statute. It's on my account on social media.
That's actually where we found it earlier.
Yes. It says or a predatory incursion or an invasion. The statute delineates three criteria for triggering the Alien Enemies Act. One is an act of war, which, by the way, an invasion is an act of war, but put that aside. One is an invasion, which this is. One is a predatory incursion, which this is. So it actually meets all three statutory criteria. But with respect to this particular statute, the proclamation is utilizing the incursion and invasion language in the statute.
So,
but this is a very important question because no, hold on. This is a very important question. You said the way our system works is the President of the United States commands the armed forces of the country, commands the foreign policy of the country, and that's subject to district court review. That is fundamentally untrue.
I never said that, Stephen. I did not say
that has never been true.
This was not a military operation.
A district court judge can no more enjoin the expulsion of foreign terrorists to foreign soil that he can direct the movement of Air Force One, that he can direct the movement of an aircraft carrier, that he can direct Marco Rubio to engage in diplomacy in a country or not.
Do you think the Supreme Court has any say over this or not? Like, does the Supreme Court of the United States have any say over the things that you were just outlining right here?
I believe what the Supreme Court will say is what I just said, which is that the president's conduct here is not subject to judicial review.
Okay, but you are acknowledging that they do, in fact, have a say here.
Well,
even though you think they may agree with you.
The Supreme Court was not the issue.
What we are expecting is the Supreme Court to say what has always been the case, which is when the president is using his powers as commander-in-chief, those determinations are not subject to judicial review. In other words, the president's designation of Tren Darwagwa as a foreign terrorist organization and as an alien enemy are part of his inherent plenary authority. There is no way.
At what point in the system, Stephen,
how are you going to expel?
Power?
How are you going to expel illegal alien invaders from our country who are raping little girls, who are murdering little girls, if each and every deportation has to be adjudicated in a district court judge? That means you have no country. It means you have no sovereignty. It means you have no future. It is fundamentally incompatible to have a country and have individual expulsions adjudicated by a single district court judge.
And it could go on. I think you have the point there. So we'll forego the last one unless I want to revisit this on Saturday. Now, meanwhile, you have that going on. And these arguments, by the way, are being waged in all of the legacy media publications. The president, pretty much they're saying, has to yield to this district court. Oh, goodness, he may have broken the law not obeying this district judge who, as Stephen Miller points out, does not have the authority based on this statute to say, to tell the president what to do. Stephen made a brilliant point, and we didn't, this is in the last one. He's like, this district judge did not bring in anybody from the administration with the wherewithal with this. He's ordering a plane to come back. He doesn't know how much fuel is in that plane at that moment. He doesn't know if there were extemporaneous conditions in the air that could have put that plane in danger on a mission. He's just willy-nilly listening to the ACLU and to others and just making a decision that he does not, according to the White House, have the constitutional authority to even make. And I hope that this goes to the Supreme Court. I hope that this ends up being something. Look, folks, we have to, these Obama-Biden appointees are out of control. Let's just call it the way it is. These guys are part of the TDS syndrome judges on benches. Some of them. I'm not saying that about this judge in particular. I'm still reading up on some of these stories that claim that, yes, indeed, despite what Stephen Miller says, there is an argument for the judge being able to do this. In fact, I think it's in either the New York Times or Washington Post today. Courts defer to executive branch factual claims. Trump complicates that. They usually say that Trump usually does. These courts usually defer if the White House makes a factual claim. But the argument they're making is, but Trump's such a liar, that the judge can't just do that, can't take him at his word. That's basically the argument that they're making. The case centers on the Alien Enemies Act, the 1798 law that allows summary deportations of citizens of a hostile nation during war. And Mr. Trump has declared that he can use it to deport people whom the administration officials deem to be members of a gang. The gang has been declared a terrorist gang. The president has the right to do that. On Saturday, James E. Boasberg, the chief judge of the federal district court for the District of Columbia, blocked the government from deporting anyone based on his avocation of. Now, that is just still unbelievable to me. This judge is actually getting in the way of the president handling his foreign policy and national security duties. It's just mind-blowing. Putting aside whether there is proof that each Venezuelan man flown to El Salvador to be housed in a high-security prison is, in fact, a member of the gang, is it even true that Tren de Agra is a terrorist group? Well, damn it, the president decides that. Who are you people? They have been committing acts of terrorism around the country as the people whose homes they invaded, as the apartment complexes that they took over. They came here on a criminal mission to inflict harm on the American people. That is terrorism. And you people want to nitpick whether Donald Trump has the right to call a bunch of terrorist gangs? What are you going to do when it's the cartel? You're going to make the same argument? Well, just because they're cartel butchers, murderers that are killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, are they really terrorists? But are they really terrorists? Because Donald Trump called them terrorists, and we hate Donald Trump so much that anything he says, we will pick a fight with. So are they really, are terrorists really terrorists? Then you go out to Seattle, and you get this. As Trump invokes Alien Enemies Act, here's how it shaped Washington history. Hundreds of immigrants were deported over the weekend after President Donald Trump invoked an 18th century wartime law for the first time since 1941. First of all, they weren't immigrants. They were terrorist gang members here illegally, not just your simple ma and pa immigrant. To these idiots that play these dumb-ass games because they're too afraid as journalists to actually tell the truth anymore. They are illegal immigrants. They are terrorists. They are part of a gang that has been terrorizing American citizens. So, yes, hundreds of illegal immigrant terrorists were deported over the weekend. Last invoked during World War II, the Alien Enemies Act at the time provided the legal basis for the arrest and detention of thousands of Japanese nationals. Then a quote, a gentleman by the name of Snerdley Shikuma, a member of the Leadership Council for the local immigration rights group TUSO for Solidarity. He said the Alien Enemies Act is an antiquated law that unjustly allows the government to single out people of one nationality and violate their legal rights. It's a way to implement a racist agenda under the guise of national security. So now you have the terrorist gang Snerdley being defended. They're just a bunch of innocent immigrants. And Donald Trump is racist because he doesn't want these murdering, thieving, low-life, gangster terrorists harming the American people. He's racist. Now, for the authors of this, Alexandria Yoon Hendricks has the byline. She's a Seattle Times staff reporter. Donald Trump is not FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt ordered all Japanese and people of Japanese origin to be sent to his version of concentration camps during World War II. That is not what Donald Trump is doing. Don't confuse the two. Your Democrat Roosevelt indiscriminately put people in camps just because they happen to be Japanese or of Japanese ancestry. That is not what's going in here with Snerdley. They are getting criminals and terrorists off the streets. We had to take a break. 800-848. We're going to do rapid phones when we get back. Plus, I just got to get you this. We got to play this Chuck Schumer. Tell you what. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Me and Julio. Down by the schoolyard. And you know why? Because Paul Simon on this day in 1972 scored his first solo #1 album. And this was a big part of it. Me and Julio. Down by the schoolyard. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard.
Rush. This is the Rush Hour with James Golden.
Bo Snerdley.
It's the Rush Hour with James Golden.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
Rush.
Now, here's James Golden.
Oh, man. Does this bring back memories? Doesn't it? You know it does. 1978. Samantha sang. Written and produced by the Bee Gees. Emotion, ladies and gentlemen. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. You know what? I've got so many sound bites that we did not get to. And we still have those Steve Bessent sound bites from yesterday. We're gonna do a show one day with just sound bites and just me commenting in between the sound bites, just what it means, because we have so many great ones. But it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for this.
James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, presents Rapid Phones.
Let's start off with Gail in Pennsylvania. Gail, how are you?
Hi, James. I'm well. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Gail.
Excellent. I think it's more apparent than ever that the legacy media is the enemy of the people. And I do think President Trump wants to bring the power of the government back to the people. And I think the media is a huge problem. And I think these corporate masters tell the legacy media what to do because they have a motivation, which is both financial and power addiction. I think that there are only 6 conglomerates now that control all the media instead of what started out as like 52 companies. And I know that most businesses that you would talk to, smaller businesses, would say they don't want a lot of regulations. They don't want carbon taxes. They don't want it. Why does the legacy media promote a lot of regulations?
Let me just jump in here. I don't know, and I'd have to spend some time with you to understand the basis of your numbers. I will tell you this. The legacy media is nowhere near as powerful as they were. They don't hold the monopoly on thought. The quote-unquote alternative media reaches over half the country. And when you look at what is happening online right now, the legacy media is, in fact, most of their news outlets are dying. And you look at some of the moves that are being made by even Jeff Bezos over at the Washington Post, by the new owner of the LA Times. The times they are a-changing, right? So I am not nearly as pessimistic about the legacy media. Where do we go next? Why is my screen all... hello? Anyway, James Golden, Snerdley, with you here. Let's go to Robert. How are you, Robert?
Okay, James. Twice. Once at the inauguration, and the next time was at the joint address to Congress. People had brought guns into the Capitol building. I've heard nothing about arrests. People are still trying to assassinate...
I don't know where you're getting this from. Which people brought guns into there?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything since then. And
if you don't know, then why am I even taking the call? I gotta go. James Golden, Snerdley with you here, my friends. May God bless and protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. Love and gratitude, my friends, for your being here with me and allowing me to be with you. God willing, we are all back here tomorrow to see the next installment of TDS play out in the judicial system and American media. Until then, my friends, I bid you adieu. Bye.
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, you sold that car yet?
Yeah, sold it to Carvana.
Oh, I thought you were selling to that guy.
The guy who wanted to pay me in foreign currency, no interest, over 36 months? Yeah, no. Carvana gave me an offer in minutes, picked it up, and paid me on the spot. It was so convenient.
Just like that.
Yeah?
No hassle.
None.
That is super convenient.
Sell your car to Carvana and swap hassle for convenience. Pickup fees may apply.